I think it's joyous. It's completely a sense of joy. But that's kind of also what happens with the magic of creating, right? You so by mending or by recreating something, you actually reinventing something. So it's that moment when you invent something or when you create something, that in the creation is a presence. It's a quietening of the mind. It's the same act, and that's why we say to be creative is to be meditative. It's a quietening of the mind. It's a stillness, and that stillness is a blackness. It's black. It's what the indigenous wisdoms would refer to as the dark spot, where everything's possible and anything can be created. And so in that moment, you present. That's why you quiet, and that presence is joy. It's a state of bliss. In fact, we in Sanskrit we call that, and there's a term, it's such chit ananda, and the ananda is to form that bliss, to be in presence. So in that moment of creating, and that moment of mending, you in that meditation, and that meditation just generates that quietness, that blackness, that just, it's joy. It just absolutely puts you into a calm state, and that is really the essence for me.
And tell me about your philosophy around anything is everything.
Okay, well, that's quite magical because the whole idea of that is that you can, in creating, and this is kind of what happens in your mending process, right? You have suddenly, you have, for instance, this jumpsuit that you're wearing and it's got a hole in it, but you want to mend it. So from that, there's a magic. So example, this little hat thing. This is a kind of thing that I've already thought, like I have a stain on a dress and I'm going to stick this over the stain on the dress so that I can reinvent it. And it's going to look great because the stain's right in the middle and I've already seen it. I'm going to put it right here. It's a white dress. It's just going to look so cute with having this heart. So that anything can be everything. Here's a heart brooch that had nothing to do with my dress, and suddenly there's a whole new possibility that you never thought about. It was not why it was created. It was not its intention in the first place. However, it's a new intention. Therefore, anything can be everything. Anything is everything. It's an endless stream of possibility. And for me, that's what comes with mending or recreating or recycling or upcycling. It's about that joy of endless possibility.
And now tell me how that might apply to styling ourselves and stepping into our own authenticity.
Well, it's the same thing, right? So if you imagine that you getting, looking at your wardrobe from that narrative of possibility, of creative expression. So you standing in front of your wardrobe and you intuitively pick pieces. So anything can always be everything, because if you intuitively pick up an orange blouse and a denim pair of shorts and some checkered leggings to go with it, that's you being creative in that moment. And this is, again, it's very hard to be tangible, to kind of express it without doing it. But if you do this, you will notice that when you're doing this, initially you may have voices in your head, but when you're doing this, it becomes quiet. After a while, it just becomes quiet, because it's the magic, it's the creation. And you come up with something that you kind of go, oh my God, like, how did this happen? I never would have thought to put my pink dress with my orange leggings, but here I am. And it's interesting because I get all these incredible compliments, like, you've got something new, whatever. No, you didn't. You followed your intuition for what you wanted to wear. Anything becomes an endless possibility. And you have a creative expression. That creative expression is your art. And that for me is how that concept of anything is everything translates into style. Style is an expression of your intuition, of your authentic self, of what Ed Miraculous Mealy call out your true self, your spirit, your innate being. And so that if you follow that intuition in front of your wardrobe and you pick things up and you listen, and you hear and you play. That's the key thing. What happens? It's just magical playfulness. You're not thinking, well, the the marketing or the trends dictate that you've got to wear light blue with green or whatever the trend is for that season. You're not doing that. You're just picking.
So would that contribute to sustainability?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the more creative you are, the more conscious you become. And this is, again, it is what is the principle that we are sort of urging people to experiment and experience. When you are playing, you are growing. And when you are growing, you are becoming more conscious. And when you're more conscious, you're creating connection. It's connection to self. And from self, it becomes interconnection to life, to being, to earth. And from that space of interconnection, or the playful joy of your life, you don't actually want to damage something that's close to you, because you suddenly feel the connection. And again, it's really hard to explain unless you fully experience this. But it is something that happens in your brain, that the more playful you are, the more creative you are, the more conscious you become. The more conscious you become, the less addicted. It's actually the way you break the addiction of needing a new thing. And that breaking the addiction of needing a new thing means you don't want to do that. You start to curate. Because what's actually happening, funnily enough, is that when you create, the hormones that are being released as serotonin is dopamine, depending on what you create as well. So these are all the happy hormones, the same hormones that you get from shopping. The difference is because it's creative. There's a consciousness an awareness that's coming up from it. It's longer lasting.
And how are you finding? Are more people aware of this kind of thing, do you feel, or are we still addicted to shopping?
Oh, we absolutely are still very addicted to shopping. I mean, the latest data on the growth of the fashion industry over the pandemic suggests that this is still, people are more and more addicted to shopping. However, alongside this, there's a growing movement. It's a growing movement of people that are saying, I'm done, I can't do this. This is not giving me the things that I need. It is not, I shop, but I still feel exhausted, or I still feel like, oh my God, I really don't want that. And for me, what's interesting, especially in my work, is that I'm finding more students, more children, more young people kind of navigating this terrain. Yet they don't quite understand it, but there is that interest of people wanting to know, what happens if I don't follow the trend? Why is it that my body is supposed to be skinnier, especially if I'm a different nationality? So there's more of this conversation that is happening than maybe, a decade ago. Yes, we've got a long way to go, but this is actually why I see from the Karishma design clientele over the years that we had, people sticking with us. And the stickiness came from the fact that they weren't addicted to clothing, that they were just really excited about curating and developing their sort of artistic toolkit that they took with them, and that was their wardrobe. And the fact that there's that motion, it's a wave, and it's a ripple effect, and it's building. So yes, it's not huge, but yes, the momentum in the last 2 decades, almost 3 decades of me being in the fashion industry. We started off in the industry with caked makeup, and yet I'm having this interview with you today with zero makeup and barefoot and and crazy hair and stuff that would in my career as a designer, my career as an academic, and this would be unprofessional or unacceptable, but it's more and more, it's becoming acceptable. So
is that because we're becoming more connected to earth-based reality?
I think it's because we're remembering. I mean, we are all connected. Just because we don't remember it doesn't mean we're not connected. And and it's my view, the sun doesn't stop shining just because the clouds are covering it. And I think we clouded as humanity for sure, but the sun's still there. So I think there's a remembering. I think we're waking up, yes. And it's interesting for me because, like I have the Miraculous Me movement, you have the slow clothing movement. And we talked about Kate Fletcher, who's an incredible academic, who she and Matilda Tan developed the Earth Logic movement, which is essentially indigenous thinking brought into English language. And then there's all these pockets of people in the world that are thinking the same things. And so it's a remembering. And I think we're remembering. And, we start small. If you think about a wave, if you watch the ocean, and I'm a fan, so if you watch the ocean and you look at how the wave rolls out, it's always slow. And as it picks up, the momentum, and if you're surfing that wave, it just rolls out. And so I think we, kind of riding it. So, yes, I think it's growing.